Take your 10-year goals and suck them into a 3-year timeline. Understand that you won't be able to accomplish it the way you're doing it because the current pathway is not leverageable enough. But if you go ahead and think about alternative pathways.
Hi, this is Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to the Magellan Network Show. My goal inside of this communication, this show, is to share with you my nearly 30 years of coaching some of the most successful financial advisors in North America. We're going to be talking about strategies, syntaxes. We're going to be bringing guests on from time to time, and I'm going to share with you what's working now. So think of this show as sort of like a little one-on-one kind of mini coaching cast, if you like, where we're going to be going in depth from time to time on strategies to help you grow your business, get more effective, become more efficient, find balance in your time management, grow your business, and quite frankly, whatever else is going on in the world today. So before we get to today's episode, I'd love for you to do a couple things for me. Number one, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're doing the audio, make sure that you give us a review on whether Spotify or Apple. We'd really appreciate that. And quite frankly, that does help. It does matter when you rate things and like things and subscribe to things. It helps us get the word out to more of the industry. And lastly, I have a very special gift for you. Go to MagellanNetwork.net, so one word, MagellanNetwork.net, and I have for you a complimentary membership, 100% gratis, where you can tap into about between 50 and 75 hours of masterclasses, forms, tools, templates, and strategies. So please go ahead and make sure you go ahead and get that claimed, smash the like button and subscribe, and please go ahead and leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're on. And now, let's get to this week's episode.
Hi, it's your Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. In this episode, we are going to discuss the power of setting impossible goals and why, just as an exercise, every advisor should do this. So first off, I am on my summer sabbatical. We are here in Marseille, France, on a 2-week cruise. So we one of the ports of call. And even though I'm on my summer sabbatical, I still want to visit with you guys and kind of keep the ball rolling, as we will, inside of Magellan Network Show. So here's why setting impossible goals is really important. And I'm going to give you a real life coaching exercise to do. So first off, a little background. This came to me about a year ago. I was speaking with a new client, a referral, and this advisor has been in the business for 15 years. They had gotten to the point where they were just north of $1 million of revenue, pretty much all advisory fee-based, so that's good. So, so everything's recurring. And they came to me, and one of the first things we do, in our evaluation process in a project is, goal setting, by the way, and business plans are not just for December and January. You can do them at any time. And so one of the things we always take everybody through is our Magellan Vision process, which is a 10-year, a 3-year, and a 1-year business planning / goal setting process. So when I reviewed his work, his 10-year goal was he wanted to go from just north of 1 million to a 3 million. Okay. So, you do the math, right? So again, I'm doing this in my head. So for those of you who are really OCD about this, forgive me. So it's about 15% a year-over-year growth, probably, right? Mark's going to do some, again, over time. He'll have some RMDs, obviously, they'll come out, but we'll still have a net positive effect in terms of just organic growth. So we were talking about, that 10-year vision and why 3 million, why not 2, why not 5? And he settled on 3, which is fine. I don't tell people or advisors what their goals are going to be. And then he said, like you said, it's a 10-year. And I said, okay, so then what would be the appropriate 3-year goal, right? So we're going to go from 1 million to like 1.5, so 50%. Which is good growth, right? And then I said, okay, well, how are we going to pull that off? And, he starts talking about, well, I just got to get a little better at referrals. I've got to get a little bit better, more consistent with my COIs. I've got to get, a little bit better at, financial planning / balance sheets. In other words, I can keep doing what I'm doing and just get a little bit better at it. And there's nothing wrong with that concept, except it sells you really short. In other words, There's no real breakthrough thinking there. There's no real breakthrough anything. And so this is something I like to do. So first of all, I said, we're going to do hypothetical. And I said, let's go over the 10-year first. I said, let's reverse engineer this. So what would your practice have to look like at $3 million? Then he said, I probably would need maybe one or two staff advisors, right? Field servicing advisors. We talked about the staff. I said, well, how about the front end of the thing? So $3 million. He says, simple math, probably around $300 million, right? Of fee-based AUM, right? That's okay, fine. That's we got $100 million. So what we're saying is we got to bolt on another $200 million over the next 10 years. Simple math, 20 million. We know the market's going to do stuff. So maybe it's going to be $15 to $18 million on average, right? And he was doing about 10 to 12. So you can see just by doing a little bit better, right? Get a little bit more consistent. I mean, the odds of it happening in a decade are very high. Unless something extraordinary happens, right? Major black swan event in the market, something happens with him, his health, or something like that. But otherwise, if he just doesn't quit, chance of getting 3 million from 1 to 3, because it took him 15 years to figure out to get to 1, right? So you now know what to do. But then here's the exercise. This is why this is so important. I said, let's just say, for argument's sake, that I convince you that the 10-year goal has got to get done in 3 years. Do you think it's possible? He goes, no, that's totally impossible. I said, well, why is it impossible? He goes, there's just no way to get that kind of AUM that quickly. I said, there's no way. Zero chance. He goes, yeah. I said, well, let's look at it. I said, let's look at it like it had to be a must. And let's just say that this had to happen, right? No matter what. Like, bad things were going to happen to you if they didn't, okay? Let's think about it. And Dr. Ben Hardy calls this pathway thinking, which is a brilliant strategy. So this advisor, most advisors, right, they have certain pathways, right? So in other words, hey, I've got my referral game, I got my optimization game, right? And they may have one or two other things. Some of you may do COI, some of you do networking, some of you may do third-party lead gen, whatever you do, and that's fine to do that. But pathways thinking is, hey, the path I'm on won't get me there. Are there different paths? And so what I started talking about, I said, look, let's just say we had to go get $200 million in the next 36 months. And he started doing the math. He goes, man, it's like 10 million, simple math, right? That's like, 8 million a month. It's like crazy numbers. I said, but let's walk through possibilities. I said, let's look for a different pathway. I said, one of the things we can think about doing, right? So we both agree that there's just no way to produce that many referrals that quickly unless something extraordinary would happen. And his marketplace is, I'd say kind of, mass affluent, right? So let's just say 750 to 2 million, 3 million, just kind of what he attracts, right? Pretty much a retiree rollover kind of game, if you will, typical business. And I said, let's look at different pathways. I said, so we can play the referral game, and we need to do better at that, and we need to do better optimization. No question on that. But that's still not going to get us there. We need to think outside. We need a different pathway. And I said, tell me about your COIs. Tell me about your accountants.
Hi, Coach Joe Lukacs here, and I'm just breaking here for a moment just to do a couple quick reminders. Number one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. In addition, please leave a comment or a review. Those things really, really matter. And share this episode with 3 of your colleagues inside the financial services space. And lastly, make sure that you go ahead and claim your free membership inside of Magellan Network. Now back to this week's episode.
And he said, well, I've got 1 or 2 that refer me here and there. I said, but you have, I think, about 150 households. I said, but, that's 1 or 2 out of 150 clients. How about everybody else's clients? Like, what have we done? And he goes, I haven't really done anything. I said, so reality is we could compress that down to like a 90-day program and reach out to every one of your clients' CPA just to see kind of what their thought process is, their belief cycle is on, partnering with advisors, stuff like that. And he's at a firm, independent firm, national large, one of the large ones, that has a COI program. COIs can get paid, right, in certain situations. I said, have you ever offered that? He goes, no, I haven't. I said, they're probably going to reject it. That's what most CPAs do. But the reality is it's a numbers game. So what about if you went to all 150, let's say 100, and you had a conversation, let's say 50 of them were just not of the right mindset. But let's just 50 that were interested, there was a conversation to be had. Then what can we do with it, right? From that perspective, what could we do with it? And I said, how many would you really need? He said, probably 3 or 4. I said, right. So in other words, we could fail 96% of the time and still accomplish that. So he starts doing it. This was like last year. So he starts going, and it didn't take us 100, it took us about 45, 55 conversations. And we got 4 CPAs, 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are newer CPAs that have taken over firms. So they're a lot more open to revenue generation, a different way of thinking, right? They get it, right? So fast forward, we get deals with 3 of them. The 4th one we're still working on. And so we've got that cooking. Hold on, there's more. Then I said, so we got that going. I said, we got to optimize your referral game. We're going to do that. I said, the other thing we got to think about is, look, you're 45 years old. You're still young. You got a 25, 30-year runway in this game. Easy 30 years. He's healthy. I said, have you ever thought about succession plans, continuity planning for older advisors? I said, there are a lot of it, and we all know, right? The bow wave of retirements, we're not that part of the bell curve now over the next 3 to 5 years. I said, we could do that and make that happen. I said, have you ever thought about just going, like I said, it's a national independent broker-dealer, 15, 18, 20,000 advisors. I said, several thousands of those advisors are going to retire in the next 2 to 5 years. I said, are you open to being a buyer? And he said, yes. I said, good. So let's talk to our regional people. Let's talk to our wholesalers. Let's get out there and let everybody know. And I said, look, here's the thing. Let's not go after the pretty practices that everybody wants, right? So let's go after the ugly ones, right? The $25 to $50 million small amount of fee-based, I buy ugly practices, right? And he said, okay, he never thought of it that way, but I actually have plans to do that, and it's very, very successful. So I said, we only need a couple of those, right? So I'm going to make a long story short, and because I want to get back to my sabbatical. So fast forward now, 9 months, right? So here's kind of where we are today. Year to date, we've brought in about $35 million. We have a couple of CPAs that have a lot of business owner clients, and same, demographics, right? So one of the CPA's clients sold his business, netted $20 million. So that was a big chunk of it, obviously. And we got the proceeds. But coming down the road, there are literally almost $100 million of business owners' potential transactions that are going to happen over the next 12 to 36 months. So what's that? That's a new pathway. See, instead of just playing the referral game and doing the optimization game, we need a different pathway. So we go hard into the COIs. And I know a lot of you who are watching or listening to me have this bias, like, oh man, I tried that 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The CPA marketplace is changing because there's a race of tax prep. The race is to zero. The newer innovative CPAs are looking for monetization opportunities. So maybe it's time for you guys to go revisit that. So we have that cooking, right? Then like a couple of months ago, one of his wholesaler partners that he works with came to him and said, look, I've got another client, same broker dealer. He wants to retire in the next 24 months. He knows you. He thinks highly of you. He would like you to talk to him. And this is about, I think, like a $65 million opportunity, right? So, it's early in the game. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. But here's what we've done in like 9 months. We've gotten, a chunk of AUM. We've got a chunk of AUM on the horizon, and we still got 2 years to go. So why am I bringing this to you? Because what I'd love you all to do as an exercise is take your 10-year goals and suck them into a 3-year timeline. Understand that you won't be able to accomplish it the way you're doing it, because the current pathway is not leverageable enough. But if you go ahead and think about alternative pathways, right? Like in this case, partnering with COIs, which, he had minimal success, but never focused. And here's part of the thing. I think a lot of you are focused on just doing things that are distractions if your core mission is growth. So hear me out. Core mission is growth, right? Now, in his case, we took it from 10 years to 3 years. So what happened? So what did he give up, right? Let's talk about this. So I said, look, here's our focus. So what do we now need to extrapolate out, right? Stop doing. And so he was doing a lot of networking. We kind of put a lot of that on hold or just dropped it, right, from that perspective. He was doing a lot of social media, which got him some likes and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, when I said, hey, man, where did your business come from? It came from referrals. It came from COIs. It came from optimization. And I said, we're not all in. I'll say everything else is a distraction to the mission, right? So he agreed to kind of cut back on his social media because, it's nice to get likes and people, oh, that's really good, but they don't hire you. And I'll give you guys just like a sidebar real quick. I look at a lot of social media as sort of what clients of mine did years ago before social media. They would take out billboards. They would run ads on local cable TV, and back then it was really inexpensive. right? This was like before social media, or 99 times out of 100. People would see your billboard. Hey man, I saw your billboard on Route 1. That's really great. They would never hire you. They would say, oh, that's good. Like you're out in business, you're a Kiwanian, a Rotarian, or a Chamber of Commerce. Hey man, I saw your billboard. That's really nice. A beautiful billboard. Congrats. But they never hire you. So, at the end of the day, it's nice to be popular. It's nice to be well known. But if people aren't going to hire you, who cares? Like if they're not going to give you money, right? If they're not going to give you their money, who cares? And that's something I think a lot of you are struggling with, which is paid versus popular. I used to struggle with that. I just want to be popular. And what I realized is that economically, you don't make money being popular. You just get a lot of noise, and it's nice. You'll starve. You'll have skinny kids. So I would much rather get paid. And so I don't care about being popular anymore. I like my little tribe here we do on the YouTube channel and on the podcast. And I really don't care if it goes much bigger than this, quite frankly. It's about doing the work that I want to do and being focused on the work I want to do. So just some things I want you to think about. So here's we did, took an advisor for $1 million, right? Think about it, 10-year, $3 million goal. I'm highly confident we're going to get that done, probably right around the 36-month mark, with different pathways thinking. And that's what I want you to take away from this episode of the Magellan Network Show, is I challenge you to take your 10-year goals, bring them into a 3-year frame, and start asking yourself, what do I need to focus on? What do I need to eliminate? And then have the courage and the conviction to go ahead and make that happen. Okay? So that's what I've got from you guys this week from Marseille, France. And again, we do have a 30-day, it is like no obligation, no look trial inside of Magellan Network. You get to use my Coach Joe AI, which has, as the last count, over 4 million words in its brain, if you will. That extrapolates to over 15,000 pages. So think of 31 years of institutional knowledge of how to be a successful advisor at your disposal. It's the Chat GTP for financial advisors. I want you to think of it that way, okay? So you get to play with it for 30 days, no obligation. So MagellanNetwork.net, go check us out, put an application in. Michael will interview you, get you in there for 30 days, and if it makes sense to you, we'd love to have you. If it doesn't make sense to you, hey, no harm, no foul. We're not for everyone. Totally get it, okay? See you guys next week. Do the exercise. Talk soon.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Hey, if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to come to MagellanNetwork.net, and we have a powerful group coaching community of like-minded advisors. Come in for a trial. You and I will have a one-on-one conversation. Let's see if I can help elevate your game, both personally and professionally.